The family of the 14-year-old Irving boy arrested for taking a suspicious clock device to school wants millions of dollars from the city of Irving and the school district. Ahmed Mohamed's family lawyer sent demand letters today threatening a lawsuit. Those letters say they want $10 million from the city of Irving, $5 million from the Irving School District. Both letters also ask for an apology. The boy and his family left their home in Irving and went to Qatar after his arrest for a hoax bomb. Turned out it was some type of homemade clock he took to school to show off to his teacher.
Ahmed, he thinks that there is a burden is come on him because he's the one really, if this had not happened to him, they're not going to be there. They're not going to leave the great nation of the United States to go to a teeny place in the Middle East.
Before moving to Qatar, the boy kind of took a nationwide tour. He visited Google and the president at the White House. The city and school district have 60 days to respond to those demand letters. After that, the next step for the family's lawyer, the family of Ahmed Mohamed, is to proceed with filing a civil lawsuit.
And attorney Mark Center joining us now. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Good to be here.
Okay, I think the one thing that's really going to stand out for a lot of people when they hear the story is the $15 million. That's an awful lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but there are a lot of moving parts on this one. There's just so many allegations. If you look at the demands that they sent to the police and to the school district, there are just so many issues that they've raised in there. And really where this came from, Heather, is that going back to Columbine and Sandy Hook and all the tragedies that we've had, the schools have started erring on the side of being conservative. They're very, very worried about things coming onto their schools. So we've got public schools, and we've got to give a public education,
right,
and we got kids coming on. And what Irving, when you go down, Irving has a code of conduct, and that's what they're looking to.
All right, so let's talk about if this does go forward, if the 60 days goes by without that $15 million check being written, they're going to have to prove damages.
Well, as you know, you can't stop somebody from suing.
Right.
You file a
Sure.
lawsuit. There are two parts to a lawsuit. You've got to show that there's liability. Somebody did something wrong or they breached a duty. We call it duty, breached a duty.
Right.
And that they caused you harm or caused you damages. So they've got to show, hey, they did something wrong. They deviated from their protocol or their code of conduct, and he was damaged.
Well, talk to me about where he was damaged. If he was damaged, he got to meet the president, Google Science Fair. I mean, there are all these things that are happening that the family said was so fantastic.
Well, I think what happened was they said that, oh, their address was released out and it wasn't safe to live where they were, and that one of his sisters got fired from a job. They've got a whole there's so many moving parts.
Right.
Where they're basing their case, at least on what I saw, was they said, hey, we're looking at 1983, which is what they hold civil officials to, in this case the police department. They did something wrong. And then Title VI, which is the Civil Rights Act, where you can't target somebody based on their ethnicity or their color, their skin, or anything like that.
No, but if we're in sort of a, if you see something, say something philosophy, a teacher saw something and said something, and there are all these cases where other kids across the country, there was one case, was a 7-year-old bit a gun out of a Pop-Tart, right, and is suspended from school.
They had a 7-year-old up in Pennsylvania, bit a Pop-Tart in the shape of a gun, suspended for 2 days. Right. Another 7-year-old went ahead and pretended to throw a fake hand grenade.
Right.
A 9-year-old at a bus stop, Hello Kitty bubble gun, didn't even have it, suspended her. It's really, but what it is you've got what's called zero tolerance.
Right.
So you've got zero tolerance over here, and you've kind of got to weigh what's going on. But I think what it comes down to is what they've got in the code of conduct is they said it's called a look-alike weapon. Mm-hmm. And it's right there in the Irving Code of Conduct. And what they've got is you've got to have somebody use their judgment. And they've got to go ahead and say, do you err on the side of caution, or do you err on the other side? And quite honestly, when your son gets picked up or your daughter gets picked up at the bus stop and goes and strangers have him or her all day long, which side would you rather him err on?
Of course, every parent wants them to be cautious. Right. Is this a fight this family could better fight from here as opposed to overseas?
Well, you're going to have all sorts of things going on. They're going to take depositions and say, you know, Ahmad, how were you damaged? What are your feelings? He's going to have to show up here. They're going to. It's a glorified statement under oath. That's called a deposition. You know, I think it's going to be pretty hard, especially if you're going to want to get in front of people to have interviews or depositions. You're going to want people to see you here. You don't want to be long distance, 10,000 miles away.
Right. And social media, people have very strong reactions and not always on the family side.
Well, I don't know about that. There are two sides to every story.
Of course,
as an attorney, you got to look at two sides to every story. It's going to come down to what they can prove, whether somebody did something wrong on the liability and whether they have damages. And if you said, no one knew this gentleman's name before, and he's, you know, he kind of went around, met the president and did a lot of fancy things.
All right, we'll keep watching. I'm sure we'll have you in again.
Thank you.
Mark, thank you. Appreciate it.